Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to our event today, Success Stories of Michigan Entrepreneurs, our panel event. My name is Desi. I am the owner of Brandon Press and a co-host of Mypreneur, along with Paul, who most of you may know from Uno Deuce Multimedia. Mypreneur is a community dedicated to supporting and empowering entrepreneurs in Michigan. And today we're excited to bring you this inspiring panel of entrepreneurs from across the state to give you different perspectives on growing a brand or business in Michigan. So before we get started, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge our sponsors for today. First, a huge thank you to the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. They are our location sponsor, bringing us this space today. And also, we want to thank Goodfellas Bagel Deli. And they sponsored our lunch. If you haven't already grabbed some lunch, be sure to grab some. And on your way out, feel free to take another. And in addition, before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items. We are going to have some time for Q&A in the middle and at the end. So if you could please hold your questions for the Q&A portion, that would be helpful. And if you haven't signed in yet, in the back there's a QR code for you to scan and sign in for the event to stay connected. So please do that if you haven't already. So now we are going to get into introducing our four remarkable entrepreneurs. They have built successful businesses right here in Michigan, and they're going to share their perspectives with us. So first up, we have Faris Alami, and he is the founder and CEO of International Strategic Management, ISM, a company that works with businesses and entrepreneurs worldwide to promote growth and leadership. With a focus on innovation and global economic development, Faris has partnered with organizations to create entrepreneurial ecosystems that empower communities both in Michigan and abroad. Then we have Emily. Can you say
Wiechmann.
Wiechmann. I wanted to say Wiechmann. I was close. But Emily Wiechmann is the founder of First Day Home Care, Michigan's largest provider of pediatric private duty nursing services. Since its launch in 2020, Emily's business has expanded into a franchise with locations across the states, and her mission is to help many medically complex children as many medically complex children as possible receive the care they need in the comfort of their own homes. We also have Kirbay Preuss, and she is part of the third generation of her family to run Preuss's Pets, a beloved and iconic pet store here in Lansing. And under her leadership, Preuss's Pets has become a destination business, even earning national attention with features on the Stephen Colbert Show. And when she's not running the business, Kirbay enjoys yoga, running, and spending time with her pets. She is also a recipient of Lansing's 10 Over the Next 10 award. And we have Adam Green, who is the founder and CEO of Stunio, an innovative platform that connects students with local jobs using smart algorithms. He started his entrepreneurial journey while in law school, turning an idea into a business that now helps students across Michigan find meaningful work. Adam holds a Juris Doctorate from the MSU College of Law and has gained extensive experience in law and business development. So this is our panel. They are going to get into sharing some of their experiences with us. So I'm going to pass it off to them. And can you all briefly tell us a little bit about you and your entrepreneurial journey?
Hi, everyone. My name's Emily Wiechmann with First Day Home Care and First Day Franchising. I'm a registered nurse by background, been a nurse about 18 years. I've served in kind of a niche space within the home healthcare industry for 17 of my 18 years, and it's a space called pediatric private duty nursing. By and large, there's not enough providers in the space. There's not enough nurses in the space to meet the demand of the number of medically complex infants and children across the U.S. that require this level of care in their homes. So I was fortunate to fall into a company that happened to do it, learn all about it, fell in love with it, traveled around the country with them, learning how ops works and in different states and all these things, and then was able to come back into Michigan, my home state, and start up my own business because I really wanted to be a part of the solution on a national scale to help these children get better access to care. So that's my story.
Okay. So our family owns Preuss Pets in Lansing's Old Town. I was literally birthed into entrepreneurship. My grandmother started it, and my goal is to really help sustain what we're all about, but also grow it. We are, I have to say this, and I think it's so important to stay humble, but one of the best pet stores in the nation. We were recent recipients of the World Pet Association Industry Legacy Leader of the Year Award. So for all pet stores across the nation, leading the way when it comes to education, customer service, and animal welfare. So my journey, I have to give major credit to my father and my mother who inspire me daily, my grandmother who also inspires me, and also our team of 75 employees who inspire me daily. I think entrepreneurship, it's so important to inspire, but also listen and be inspired by others around you. So.
Come on, please.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Green. I'm the founder of Stunio. It's a digital platform, technology software platform that connects college students to local businesses using smart algorithms. So essentially think like a Uber-like system. If you've ever used Uber before, it's as quick as calling an Uber or a ride share that we're connecting students to businesses. And the reason I started it is because during my second year at law school, I was selling my plasma twice a week. Has anybody ever sold their plasma before? Yeah. And so a lot of college students do that. And unfortunately, I got to, the frequency of selling my plasma was to the point where my doctor said, you got to cut that out because this is not entirely healthy for you to do. And especially since I wasn't eating all the right foods because, well, let's face it, a lot of college students can't afford a lot of the right foods. So I stopped selling my plasma. I had shingles. It was a big deal and just said, we got to cut that out. And so I started posting on local Facebook pages in Lansing, asking if anybody would like to hire me, a college student, to mow their lawn or to do some landscaping or to walk their dog or just sort of like odd jobs. That was 3 years ago. And since it's developed into a much larger company and we're growing pretty rapidly. Now we're working on partnerships with universities and specifically focusing on connecting students with business opportunities to get short-term opportunities with local businesses in our community so that the students get both short-term access to cash, which is important so that they're not selling their plasma all the time, but then also longer-term opportunities to get hired into micro internships, professional jobs, part-time jobs, whatever it may be. So really trying to use the short-term opportunities created via these gigs on Stunio to lead into longer-term engagements and better engagements, both for the students and for the businesses who are seeing in real time how these students work. Do they show up on time? What's their work ethic like? And vice versa, the students getting to see more about the work environment, the culture, before maybe they make that full-time hire. And so, yeah, I've been running it for about 3 years now, and we have a new office in Lansing on the west side near Horrocks, and super excited to keep expanding and keep growing across Michigan.
Very cool. So it's really interesting to hear all the stories. My story is somewhat also the same, but different. I started because I had no choice. So it wasn't a luxury of wanting to start a business. It was because of a war that got me to the US, that got me to start the business. So my first business was a t-shirt business and then evolved over the years. And today it is what it is with ISM. We initially started with really volunteering / helping some entrepreneurs directly, mainly immigrant, mainly minority women, mainly minority groups, helping them come up with what I call 2-page business plan, just like some basic strategies, how you're going to get your customer. And with time, people were like, well, I have money. Can I pay you? I'm like, sure. Then I started making some money on it. And then in 2008, with the crash of the economy, I switched how we support the entrepreneurs by supporting the organization that supports them to help them develop programs that entrepreneurs can use in their community that help them start or grow their businesses. So, and it keeps shifting. We're right now doing direct technical assistance to actual businesses, but through the cities or through the counties in partnership. So that's really like my journey. It wasn't a choice. It was I had to eat. So when you have to eat, you got to figure out something really quick. And T-shirt was my pathway to be where I'm at today.
I'm sure we can all appreciate the different perspectives of how each of them got started on their entrepreneurial journeys. And we know that no matter what you do, there's going to be challenges that arise being an entrepreneur, no matter where you are. So if you could all share with us a significant challenge that you've had being an entrepreneur, whether it was starting your business or while you're in your business, that you think was a pivotal moment for you.
Martin's head shake. Probably pandemic, right? Like, who can relate to the pandemic? I remember sitting in a city hall meeting and explaining the multitude of things we do within our business, and all of them kind of shaking their heads and saying, we don't know what you're going to do. That sounds really hard. Like, that sounds really hard. When you are in animal care, you absolutely have to have people to take care of animals. When you are in animal care and you're connecting with your customer, that is everything. That is absolutely everything. So you take a pandemic, when you are a top tourist destination who relies on people and you can't have your people, it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I remember doing on our social a live video and not intending to, but breaking down crying in the middle of the video. And then the news showing up at my door later saying, your story was so compelling. We want people to see how challenging this is. So I look back now and I, knock on wood, use that pandemic as a constant reminder to myself of when days are tough. We're okay. It's going to be okay. It's okay. It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. It felt so dark. It was this tunnel, but here we are. We're still here. We're here. So that was a challenge. That was a pivot. When I do a search online for where to take my daughter, my store is one of the main places that comes up. So again, as a top tourist place, how did we survive? And here we are to say we did survive, thankfully. So.
Gosh, when I think about a challenge that our company faced in particular, the first thing that came to mind is we're the first and only franchise in the United States doing what we're doing. And why is that? There's a reason for that. And I get that question a lot. People who want to potentially open up a first day home care franchise across the US, it's one of the first questions they ask. When I say we're the first and only one, and I like to tell that, and they say, well, why is that? And, I think a lot of it comes down to educational disparity. So as a nurse, they don't teach us in nursing school how to go care for an infant, a 3-month-old infant who has a tracheostomy, a feeding tube, a seizure disorder, and is dependent on a ventilator breathing machine to breathe for that child 24 hours a day. They don't teach us that in nursing school. And that's the very niche and unique space that I'm trying to operate within. So there's a huge educational disparity, and it was something that we strategically had to approach to understand how can we close this educational gap in a meaningful way, in a way that is, of course, upholding industry standards in healthcare and clinical practice. But how can we close this educational gap to take this very lofty concept and this very lofty idea that nobody even understands what it is and make it palatable so that somebody like a franchise owner across the US can say, I don't even have a medical background at all, but I want to open one of these and I want to pass this knowledge that you have along to my field nurses that I'm about to hire in my local business. So I think really just identifying the gaps in this space that we wanted to enter and figuring out strategically, how can we close that gap? What can we do to close that gap? And that's really why we're seeing some success in our business.
You want to go ahead?
Sure. Yeah, over the past 3 years has been a multitude of challenges with, having various team members come and go and trying to get, and specifically my type of business with technology, you often require investment from, investment companies and firms, and navigating those challenges. But there's two main ones that come to mind apart from that. Starting the business back, like I was mentioning, back in law school, I'm not a technology person, and this doesn't apply to anybody that just wants to start a tech company. This really applies to anything. I was not the person that was really, say, meant to make the type of business that I made, because I don't have the background necessarily to make technology. I don't have those skill sets. I'm a lawyer by trade. And so when I was thinking and prospecting about starting this business and what it could be ultimately in 10 years, I'm thinking, oh, it's a technology company, but I have no ability to make technology. And for a lot of people, in whatever type of business it is, it could be, even if you're, as you mentioned, with starting a home care nurse franchise, they may not have the necessary experience in it. But I think for a lot of people, specifically, and especially with me, it took me just taking that first step and trusting that there are other ways that you can learn, and you can sort of be what's called hacky, kind of growth hacky, getting, and also scrappy, just trying to put together any part of the pieces of the puzzle that you can before then you have the holy grail of I have this app, or I have technology, or I have a whole company. So we started on Trello, which is a website that essentially we would have local residents in the community sending us. They would call me, they would send me texts, they would send me. I had one lady send me a letter. Again, I'm thinking of like big term, like big scheme here. I want to be a technology company, but I'm having people write me letters saying, "Oh, can you walk my dog? 2 days a week?" And but it took doing the business like that for over a year for me to even understand the market and what customers really wanted and what we could provide to students. And so those were definitely challenging days, because I was thinking, how am I, as a second-year law student, then going to take this into a full-time opportunity for myself? And that was the other big challenge for me, was when I graduated law school in May of 23. I'm like, this is a huge leap, because at that point we had very basic technology that we had built, and it was scary, and it's incredibly challenging to think that even something that I had studied so long for, that I wasn't going to go actively practice it, at least for the time being, as we run this business. And I think entrepreneurs in that sense probably run into that same dilemma at all points of their business, or at least at the start, whether it's imposter syndrome, thinking that you're not the one to do it, or you think, oh, this just couldn't be the right timing. A lot of times with probably the right fortitude, like you talked about, Kirbay, with during the pandemic, the right fortitude and surrounding yourself with good people, it can happen. And so obviously I'm a testament to that. 3 years later, we've built an incredible amount of technology. And so that started off with me just taking in letters and doing anything we could to get jobs, going to farmers markets. So those were the tough days, but it's well worth it to learn about the process before you then get to the promised land where you'd like to be with your business.
Thank you. I mean, just like, I think probably similar to you, I've been around for a long time. So the company's been around for 21 years. We just celebrated 21 years in August, and I've been in business since 1991. So been around for a very long time in business. So pandemic, wars, bombs, other pandemics, like the financial pandemic, I'm accustomed to having problems. If there are no problems, I'm always concerned, because like there's some things going on that is not really weird. So I'm accustomed to problems. I think the biggest challenge that I see all the time, and it just continues to come up with more challenges, is probably like when I lose a big customer, right? When we lose a big contract, it's always a challenge, because luckily now most of my customers, if I lose any of them, I will hurt, but I won't die, because most of them are less than 20, and I try to keep that less than 20% of the business coming from one source. But it does hurt a lot if you lose one of them. It's not because of the cash flow also, but also the momentum that you have created. One of the challenges also that I'm facing right now with the growth, opening up another location overseas can be a challenge, because you have to make sure that you meet all the rules and regulations, and you make sure that you have the right person with the right culture mindset that could potentially reflect the culture that you built here to expand there. So those are some of the challenges that you face. I always tell people, if you're an entrepreneur and you're not running into problems, A, you're not probably big enough, or B, you're not in business. So that's usually kind of like, you have to have problems. You just learn how to, kind of like what you said earlier, you just like have to live, how to go through them. Just the more you go through many of them, the easier it is to get there. And this is why we do what we do. Like when you were talking about customer, I'm like, oh, customer discovery program or exploring entrepreneurship. We have so many programs that could plug and help some of the entrepreneurs at the earlier stage to hopefully minimize that painful process that we all have to live through it. So if you have no problems, you have no business. That's kind of like my closing remarks on that.
I love the way you summed that up. That's that's also like, I like the way you took everyone's answers and kind of wrapped it up in there, because that's literally what I was looking to get from that question for you all. Literally, problems are going to come up no matter what stage of business you're in, no matter how successful you are, they're going to be there. And if you don't have problems, you're not in business, right? So being that Mypreneur specifically focuses on Michigan businesses and entrepreneurs, I would like to know from you all, how has being based in Michigan influenced your business? Whether it's the local resources, networks, support, any of that, how does that help you?
All right. So I love that. If there aren't problems, I'm concerned. I was talking recently to our neighbors. Part of why we moved into where we are in Lansing is it's a strong network of entrepreneurs. And we talk about all the time, you got to be scrappy. You got to be resourceful. There's something I think about living in Michigan where you just meet some people that are really creative, that it is, I think, pretty robust with entrepreneurs and people who are creatives. Our neighborhood, we did a zip code analysis with our recent location, and well, now it's been 20 years. It's not recent. Time flies. And found out that a very small population of our clientele came from where we were located. So being where we are now downtown has catered to a lot more of our customer traffic, and people are very appreciative of that. I also just personally, I love the diversity of where we're at. I also love that it's full of arts and culture. To my industry, which is marine organisms and pets, we are in a state where students don't necessarily have access to working with corals and doing coral propagation. So being in Michigan has actually lent itself to helping us get interns and get individuals in the state of Michigan who love the opportunities we're able to provide, where maybe in Florida, they're very easy to come by, right?
You don't want to go?
Pass for a minute.
Okay, sure. Adam?
Sure, I'll go for it.
She's brewing it.
Yeah. No, Michigan's been great. Like I said, I started at Michigan State University. I was in a program called the Burgess Institute, which was our, more or less the business accelerator or hatching program at Michigan State. But even beyond that, because not everybody will have access to a university startup accelerator, those types of things. What I found really interesting is the amount of investment that the state of Michigan has been putting into local entrepreneurship programs and different smart zones, it's called. Lansing has a wonderful Lansing Smart Zone that we've been able to benefit a lot from, with different grants and opportunities for connections and resources. And, just like you were saying about being scrappy and kind of being resourceful, it really boils down to the types of people and the connections that you have around you. And I think what Michigan has done well at, as far as my experience goes, is providing enough people to connect you to help you move your business forward. And so, Michigan's been great. I love it. There's especially in my business, like I said, with technology, there's sort of this weird, mindset or thought process of, if you're building technology and you're not on the coasts, if you're not in New York, or if you're not in Silicon Valley where, the big players are, that you're not doing it right, or you're not going fast enough. But what we've seen is that there are these Midwest, states like us, and Michigan particularly is doing well out of even all the Midwestern states at providing better opportunities for founders like me in my field to pursue technology and to pursue it, as in a way that mimics what is happening on the coast, where it's like even a lot more investment, and these things happen much quicker. And I do think that is because of Michigan's investment into the startup communities and these smart zones. So definitely, if you're looking to start a business and get involved, there's a lot of people and connections and resources that are willing to help and are willing to give back to your business or to your idea, because we probably all benefited from other people helping us too. And I think that's where it becomes circular. And I think Michigan's been really good for that. And I love being a Michigander entrepreneur.
We love that.
I mean, I moved to Michigan in 2003 when everybody else was moving out of Michigan. And I'll never forget few faces looking at me like, what's wrong with you coming here, specifically to the Detroit area. And, I think being in Michigan is unique because we're also an international state. Just Michigan, if you're somewhere a little bit further down, you might not have that kind of luxury. I can go to Canada if I drive 45 minutes south, then I'm in Canada. And usually people who don't know geography, look at me like, 45 minutes south of Canada, where are you? So you have to explain, which is kind of like fun. Also, Michigan is unique in the aspect that there are lots of international flights that comes through at least Detroit Airport as well as Lansing, that you could just directly go almost anywhere in the world, at least to one stop before you go anywhere else. And then Detroit has one of the stops for Turkish airline, which has a connection for 195 countries if you go to Istanbul. So that's the easy access to the world that people miss. And I'm very lucky because, the state, to what you were saying, Adam, has so many wonderful programs, from the Michigan Economic Development Corporations to your local, institutions like the smart zones and everything else in between. They all want to support you. They're all trying to figure it out. They, of course, not unlimited. So there's a limit. So internship, they have some matching money. I've taken advantage of that. I've taken advantage of being able to go overseas and expose our company to products and services that we could sell to other places, and that allowed us to be in 101 countries. So these are things that, I'm not saying that they don't exist in other places, because I'm lucky enough to see that, but also they're unique and the way they're approached and the team that are behind it, that they want to support you. So I think Michigan has advantages to some of that sometimes just easier not to see it by overlooking to the East Coast, West Coast, or some of the bigger names that you might hear about.
So who learned something new about Michigan out of that? I did. I learned a couple of new things about Michigan out of the responses that we did get. So I do have one more question, but I'm going to throw it to the audience here and see if anyone else has a question that they'd like to present to the panel. No takers? All right. Well, it's okay because I came prepared. I have questions. So today is National Checklist Day. So I would like for each of you to give the audience your 3-item checklist for the newbie entrepreneur. What advice do you have for them as far as getting started on their journey?
Ooh, I had number 1. You said 3 things. Got number 1 ready to go.
1 to 3. 1 to 3. Let's do that. 1 to 3.
I think identifying your differentiator is incredibly important if you want to be successful in a business. Understanding, you can be in a flooded market, and that's okay. As long as you really understand what is it that I do well, or I do better, or I do differently than all these other people that are in the same space as me. That is so incredibly important. Sometimes identifying your differentiator is very easy because you're the only one doing it. So you're a little bit of a trailblazer or a maverick. But other times in more flooded industries, it's a little bit tough. And I really go back to something that I think is called the hedgehog concept in business, which is, what is that one thing that you do so well, and really hold on to that and really let that drive and be the main force of your business to say, this is what we do. And this is what we do better than others. So really hold on to that once you figure out what that piece is.
Love that. Let's build our checklist. Who's next? We've got one.
I think mine kind of goes with my shirt. This might seem strange, but The number one thing is learn to love yourself. I know that may sound strange, but it gets lonely. It can be hard. I was just talking to some other women I'm in a group with that own places that are animal care. And when you're in a space of leadership, it can be tough sometimes. You're kind of the only one standing there amongst many others trying to make really tough decisions. And there's been many nights where I'm home and I'm in tears and I'm like, did I make the right decision? And so that goes into number two, which is what I'd say is surround yourself with people you trust. Recently, my father had a pretty big accident. It's been one of the toughest times I've ever been through. And I was telling Paul that it made me realize, though, we've built a remarkable team of managers that I trust, that truly are like family, that I can fall back on and know that they truly have my back. And then the third thing, which kind of goes with have your back, surround yourself with strong business resources like what the chamber provides, so that you do have those things that maybe you went into business because you're passionate about bubbles, or you're passionate about vet care, or you're passionate about whatever it is. You got to have the stuff, though, that's the foundation, the business foundation, because that's a big part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, echoing a couple of the points they made, which were fantastic. I would say first point I would say for a new entrepreneur, get scrappy, get creative, get be adapting, willing to adapt, and not box yourself in a I guess a box if you're boxing yourself. Don't box yourself in with this idea that, again, you are seeking perfection. You're seeking like what's the best, what's your outcome you're looking for in 10 years. Because ultimately it's not going to be what you have today or tomorrow. And be okay with that, because that is what is going to get you to that 10-year goal, is all the experiences and the struggles and the pains and the adaptations and being scrappy is going to get you to being able to get to that next stage. And so that was something I've learned the hard way. I've definitely, wasted time on perfection and where we, need to be just doing it. And I talk to other student entrepreneurs at Michigan State about this quite frequently. It's just, you don't have to build something entirely fancy. Get it to market. And, the market's big enough too, which goes to my second point, kind of echoing a little bit about, sometimes it's a bit scary, because you may think that, and you may know that there are, say you're making, candied popcorn, for example, there may be 100,000 other candied popcorn companies that exist. But if you also think about it, that's one, it's scary because you think, oh, there's so much competition. But you also think, if all those businesses are in business and they're making money, why can't I? And the market's obviously big enough to sustain it. If you think, you see a Lowe's home improvement store right across the street from the Home Depot, there's an obvious reason for that. I mean, they can be in the exact same locale, both doing the exact same thing, but both be wildly successful because the market is so big. So don't be scared off by the fact that other people could be doing what you're doing. I think differentiation is perfectly put. You have to have some differentiation just to continue to drive your business forward, to make you stand out a little bit more too. But ultimately, if you have the same exact thing, you're just doing it a little bit different way, that's okay too, because the market is so big. So don't be afraid of that. I was definitely afraid. My first year doing this in law school, I had a lot of different, I did these pitch competitions, and I had people tell me, oh, there's TaskRabbit and there's Angie's List and all these other companies. And I was thinking, oh, how could I ever compete? These are billion-dollar companies. And ultimately what you have to realize is that they're not in every single home. They're not serving every single person. The market's much bigger than we realize. And so there's two good checklist items.
I love it. We're working our way up.
Yeah. So I have few. I'll give the three. I wrote a book on it, shameless plug. So start where you are is what I will tell entrepreneurs, because you're never going to get to where you want to go if you don't start where you are today. So that would be my first insight. Start where you are, just based on what you have, based on what you got, because you probably have more than you think. I was homeless. I was stateless. I came from a war zone. The war's still going on, and it hasn't stopped. And you can still start and do it, right? So that was just to start where you are. The second thing I would say, find a mentor. Having people that are willing, and there are lots of them. People love to mentor people. Be careful, of course, who mentors you. But I would say just find a mentor. Find someone who cares about you and cares about your journey. What I would usually say is you're not looking for people to say, don't do it, or you shouldn't do it, or there are 10,000 competitors. I already know those things. I'm looking for the mentor that says, what are you going to do about it, right? How are you going to go? How are you going to be different? How are you going to do all this stuff? So find a mentor. And then the last thing I will say, be ready to fail, because it's just part of the journey. If you don't accept the idea that you're going to fall on the ground, get up and clean up yourself and do it again, you're probably not meant to do it. Unless, I also feel, unless you have all the resources, all the money, then disregard what I'm saying, because you could do it right from day one. I don't know that route. I only know the route without anything. So if you're going to go through it without anything, just be ready to make some mistakes, learn from them really as fast as you can, and keep going.
I love that. We got us a good checklist going there, right? We got what, 3, 6, 9, 3, 9. We got 9, because you two together gave us 3. So we got a good 9-item checklist to get you guys started on your journey if you are new to the entrepreneurial space. And since we didn't have any audience questions, I'm going to close out with one more question for you all. And since the name of the event is Success Stories of Michigan, do we have a question?
Oh, I was gonna ask a question.
Oh, yes, get in there.
Because you talked about having some of our local resources and stuff like that. Are there any specific resources you would recommend that have been particularly helpful for you in your journey?
I'll share one that comes to mind just when you ask that. But one of the biggest things I was scared of when I was thinking about starting up my own home care company for years, and I was talking to these other people at these other home care brands that were good friends of mine, and we've all been in the industry for years. And I said, I don't know how to do the marketing piece. I'm missing this one piece, and I have to be able to do it all to start up a business, right? And they're like, no, you don't need to do that. You can outsource anything you want. And so I got hooked into Fiverr pretty early on. I think Fiverr actually designed our first iteration of our logos and websites. And I mean, I relied on them so heavily, and the cost point was where it needed to be for me as somebody who was making $0 the day I started my business. So yeah, it was wonderful. So, don't be scared to outsource some things when you're first getting started. You'll get to a point where you slowly start to bring those things back in house when you're ready, but don't be scared to reach out and see what other businesses have to offer for you, like Fiverr and Upwork and things like that.
Are you from the Lansing area?
I am.
Okay, so I love that you're taking notes.
So
Lansing Economic Area Partnership (LEAP) and the Lansing Smart Zone. So I kind of referenced it earlier. Gosh, sorry. Super amazing bundle of resources that they have. You can apply for even some small grants. They'll give you some money, and you can go to workshops and different connection events and things. And it's incredible that they have money from the state that they're willing to give out once you apply and go through a process. Essentially saying that if you have a need for marketing, potentially you could work with. The idea is that they're wanting you to use local resources like, a marketing firm in town as well. And so whereas those external resources are great too, the state and the city do provide some grants if you can get them for working with like a marketing agency or working with like a partner. If you need, say in my example, you need technology developed, you can work with local developers and those types of things. And so LEAP has been fantastic for us and definitely good for the Lansing region with all the money that they have.
I love that you're asking the question because I know exactly who you are. And if my daughter was here right now, who's 3 years old, she would think you're the biggest celebrity in the room. So I want to first acknowledge you are on brand. And when you walked in, I knew who you were. And I would say for us, and I think it would help you too, would be the Small Business Development Center. They are just a multitude of resources. And whether you've been in business 42 years like we have, or if you're new and upcoming, they really do have a lot of things to help and a lot of ways that you can network with other places that help too.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said SBDC. So that's it's a big group. They also have something called SCORE, which would be another group within the SBDC. It's a different branch of it, that you might have to seek. I will also add that all of the economic development agencies, so in the county, but also in the city, because of what's happening over the last few years, we're actually like what they call technical service provider, that they will pay for our service through those agencies. So I would encourage you to just If you're in Lansing, just Google the word Lansing Economic Development Agency. I think LEAP leads a lot of it, but they might have another branch. Besides that, of course, I mentioned earlier, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. So they look at the whole state economic development work. So I would just use the word Economic Development Agency and your city name or your county name, depending on how big your city is. You will find amazing resources that they could potentially, support your work. I mean, we, as a small company, we are providing what they call technical assistant work for multiple counties throughout the state, and it's all through that economic development agency. So I would encourage you to leverage that because they'll also connect with resources.
Thank you.
And also your regional chamber in your
course.
area.
As long as the people here, right? All these amazing people are here.
Let's throw that one on the list.
Whatever they're watching. Right?
So those are some really great resources. Thank you all for providing those. I'm sure you got some good points out of there too, right? Awesome. The question that I was going to leave you all with, since the event is called Success Stories of Michigan Entrepreneurs, we've had you guys definitely share about challenges, about resources that you've taken advantage of, about where you are in your journey, how business is going. Can you all leave us with a success story, a milestone, or a proud achievement that keeps you going in your entrepreneurial journey?
So when I was like a kid, I grew up in our business, right? And I remember standing on the street corner dressed, I don't know why it was a rubber chicken, but I had to wear a rubber chicken costume. I didn't even get an allowance for this, Dad, back pay. A giant pink poster board written with Sharpie, come to Preuss Pets, and just hoping someone would walk in, like just hoping, like someone please, like believe in what we are. To have your business featured on Stephen Colbert, not 1, but 2 years in a row, is a very, just like, it gives me goosebumps to think about. We never gave up. We kept trying. Just never give up. And I want to say this too. We were having a brainstorm session when Stephen Colbert featured us, because that was totally unexpected. And he featured us, he calls it a small biz bump, and he was giving us credit for how hard we were trying during the pandemic. It was totally a surprise. And then his production team reached out and emailed me and said, we were really impressed with you guys. We want to feature you again. And I thought it'd be funny to hold his small biz bump plaque. And at the time I was super pregnant and I was literally in labor. Like, my boyfriend knows I was like in the bathtub in labor, and like Colbert's giving us the shout out. And so I thought it'd be funny to do a Facebook Live on our Facebook page of me in labor. I was in the bathtub, but I had clothes on. But to do this like hilarious shout out to Colbert while eating Ben and Jerry's ice cream, which I should have been eating his ice cream. That's where I went wrong. Colbert has one. But I was eating ice cream and I gave a shout out to the small biz bump. And I remember going to work the next day and our team saying, that was really ridiculous. Why did you do that? That was like so obnoxious. And I say that because sometimes the craziest things, within reason, get you things you don't expect. And it was because I did that Facebook Live that his production team said, this is why we want to feature you again. And my labor is now an entire opening monologue on the Colbert Show. And because it ended up that the Lansing region got a lot of national recognition because of our business being on the Colbert Show. So I just say that because don't give up on sometimes the craziest ideas, and be surprised what might come of it. So.
Good luck with that, Adam.
Yeah, how do you follow that
Tell me
up?
about your labor and delivery.
Yes, no labor and deliveries, though my wife is pregnant in March. We're having a baby, so that's fantastic. So we'll have to maybe coordinate and figure out how to get good press out of it. So no, that's awesome. And a really cool experience for us was we had just launched some of our new software. I talked about those algorithms, the matchmaking system. It's very fast and, it gets the students to where they need to be at the right time. I was talking with the former CEO of Lansing Convention Center last fall, and he was explaining to me that over the years, they had used many different staffing companies, and a lot of the staffing companies were not as reliable, and they didn't show up on time, and it was just a lot of different problems. They approached us with a need for during MLK event this year. So like their big event at the convention center with the governor and senators. And, it's a very large event. And they said last year they had staffing companies say that they were going to bring 100 people, confirmed, booked, ready, delivered for that day, and only 19 people showed up. Although the company said that they were going to bring 100. And so, as you can imagine, the Lansing Center was scrambling, trying to, make do with what they had, literally pulling in supposedly the chief of staff of the mayor to hand out plated dinners because they didn't have enough people to hand it all out. So this year they put a big bet on us, which was they wanted 50 students to show up to do the MLK event to help it run smoothly. They probably assumed they're going to have like a 50% show up rate or something. And, they thought, we'll just give them 50, see how they do, which was nuts. And I was sweating bullets because this was, 10 times more than we'd ever done in one event. Like, I think the most we had anywhere was 5 or maybe 4. So anyways, as you can imagine, I'm trying to make it work with the convention center, and fast forward the day of, our system booked all 50 students. And I was like, okay, that's the first step, making sure they get booked. Are they going to show up? Well, I woke up in the morning and it was -15 wind chill outside. And I'm thinking, like, nobody's going to show up. And this is the end of the business. And, and especially since I was going out trying to get investment dollars and trying to prove that this thing actually works and students are going to show up because they're industrious and, they're trustworthy. Well, wouldn't you believe it? Actually, all 50 students showed up. And so it was -15 wind chill. And that was super cool for us. And the convention center said it was the first time in not 3 years, but 35 years that the event went actually on time because the food was served on time, and that they had no complaints and all these other things. And the students did great. So it was like a really cool moment. We have this really cool picture of all the students and me at the convention center. And it was a proud moment for me to find out that this thing works, and hopefully we can keep growing.
Yes.
So when I think about a success story for First Day Home Care, Paul and his team at Uno Deuce recently came in and assisted us in sharing a video story of one of our patients, and it's a little baby boy named Darby. So we have a story called Darby's Story out there, and Darby passed away just prior to his 3rd birthday because of all of the medically complex conditions that he had. And it may seem odd to think of a child passing away at such a young age as a success story, but I think about his mom, his dad, his now little sister that he got to hold in heaven before she arrived here on earth. And, I think it's really about we did our job. We did what we were supposed to do. We stepped into that family's home and gave that mom and that dad a minute to be mom and dad, instead of now we're these honorary nurses and doctors. They have to care for this child and doing the meds and doing all these things, We were there to give them a break. And I felt that in that family's home, we really did what we were there to do. And I will always and forever think of Darby as a success story for First Day Home Care. So.
I think there are lots of successes, just like there are so many failures, right? I think it's just part of the journey. I usually like to focus on the successes that we see through our clients or our partners that we work with. So seeing a program launch in a community and then the entrepreneurs benefiting from it, whether they're starting a business or growing a business, is exceptionally rewarding, right? Although I might not necessarily receive any money because of it, but it's just rewarding to see that someone came up with an idea, and through a little bit of support, they were able to launch it and make it happen. One of the ones that I really keep talking about, even though it happened years ago, is a gentleman that came, also like me, a refugee. And then, we, through a little bit of insights, he was able to buy an existing business and then move into it, right, and grow with it. And that to me was a great success, because we just watched someone that came in, staying at someone else's house and slowly getting on their feet and buying a business, getting a loan to get a business, and so on. Those are usually stories that I think of success. I don't think of success for me, maybe. And I want to add, just because you asked about success, I'm going to add just a line. Don't let others define success for you, because a lot of times we chase success because someone else told us success is driving this car or doing this thing. And success is what it is you want it to be. Because success for me may be spending time with my wife and kids, for someone else with their parents, for someone else traveling around the world, for someone else being around whatever. You have to define success. So don't let others define it for you. And for me, success is seeing someone else that we worked with, whether it's a program to be launched or someone going through the program, getting the results that they're looking for is exceptionally rewarding for me and for the team.
Thank you all. I love that. That is exactly why I asked that question, Faris, because the definition of success is different for every person in this room, and it looks differently even across our panels. So definitely take inspiration from the differences between all of their stories and the success that they have had being a Michigan business. I do want to thank you all for sharing those perspectives with us. Before I start to close out, just going to give the audience another chance if there was any remarks or questions that you guys wanted to make. I love that. Yes, because I'm going to say it again as well. Thank you to all of our panelists. You guys gave us a lot to think about, engage with today. And the importance of resilience in business has definitely been shown across the board here with the different types of experiences they've had to have, navigating challenges, expanding into new markets. And I hope each of you in the audience does leave here with some inspiration and some actionable insights to take on your own business journey. So again, a big thank you to all of our panelists and our attendees who came out today. Thank you to the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce for being our location sponsor and giving us this space. Goodfellas Bagel Deli for bringing us lunch today, because it was good to definitely come in and have something to eat while we get started. As we look ahead, Mypreneur's next event will not be until next year, but it is going to be a resource fair for Michigan entrepreneurs and businesses. It will feature some of those resources that you were asking about, and we're going to bring them right to you here again, but it's going to be next year. So over the remainder of the year, be sure to stay connected with Mypreneur on our Facebook page, our Facebook group, ping on the website as well. And we will also be sending out emails and posting on social media to recap the year's events. Be sure to also connect with each of these entrepreneurs here, because I'm sure even if it's just a, hey, let's stay connected, or I want to be inspired by you more directly, I'm sure you can get something beneficial out of that. There is, again, the sign-in QR code in the back, so please, if you haven't, go ahead and take a moment to do that. But we're going to hang out and network for a little while. And do anyone on the panel have any final things you want to say to the audience, or anything you want to shameless plug?
I brought some water bottles out on the table outside. Please take 1 or 2 or 3 if you would like. Thank you.
Yes.
They're nice water bottles. I saw them.
I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna get one. Well, that is what we have for now. So feel free to mingle, network, and grab more food. And thank you all so much for coming out today.